Welcome everyone, this is Glenda Dawson and I have LD here with me and you are watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. We are live on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, many other platforms, streaming platforms, and on the Conscious Awakening Network. Tonight we have a great guest. And, I could do a lot of introduction, but I really prefer that he talks and tells you all about himself. Robbie Thomas. Hi, Robbie. How are you
Hello.
today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being had.
Yes.
And it started. We're off.
We're off to the start. Yes.
So, Robbie, tell us about yourself, how you got to where you are, what experiences brought you to here, and your books and everything else, so the audience can really get to know you.
Well, the introduction will be the whole show, but no, seriously. Let's see here. I'm a father, husband first and foremost. I get yelled at a lot, and I don't pick up my socks, and I'm that general guy. Now, as the professional side of it, well, I've been a psychic seer profiler working with law enforcement for 33 years, well documented. My first case was 1990, and I've been on television. My first 1 hour television special was in 2003. I've been in several movies, Dead Whisper, Sally House, The Gateway to the Paranormal, Paradox, in a current award-winning television series right now on Amazon Prime Video and Tubi TV called Halloween Obsessed with Michael Gross from Family Ties, and oh boy, he's gonna kick my butt. Tremors, you name it, LA Law, and then there's Dee Wallace, who was from Critters, Cujo, E.T., and a whole beautiful amount of assortment of different cast members. Now, we delve into the paranormal on my side and also into the murder cases. We've put out 2 episodes so far and have won 7 awards. Chinese theater in LA, the director's from LA. There's more to come. She just moved actually to Carolina. So we're in the midst of getting her set up, getting everything viable again to put it all back out and with the editors and what have you. Also, I've signed on for my other own television crime series back before COVID. It was very uncanny how this happened, where I had Dog the Bounty Hunter's producers and Dog and Beth, 2 different shows, producers, after me at the same time. And unbeknownst to either or, they did not know they were both talking to me. So we ended up signing with Citizens Pictures before COVID, actually 1 week before COVID hit. And we went through a melee of all the cases for roughly a month and a half, 2 months prior to signing. All my cast members are law enforcement, high-ranking officers from the United States. I'm the only Canuck. What transpired was right after signing and having everything lined up, COVID hit, border shut down, and we all got to know our couches very well and named them for 2 years. So that's where it stemmed and got shelved for a while. Then we re-signed, and now we're in the midst of talks again with now, because you have to start all over again. You have to go back to the beginning and rehash all of it back out. So the producers are doing that, and that's where we stand right now. Going back all those years, because we've already went forward quite a bit, I went through to be a police officer twice in my lifetime. Once I was hired and fired the same day, and that was because I was too young. I did the onslaught of conventional testing, and you would have your physical, you would have your psychological, you'd have all your meetings and your interviews, and I went right on through to the 3 auxiliaries that they were taking, and you had to be 20 years of age. And I remember sitting down in the chief of police office, and 2 auxiliaries were to my left, and I was the only one to the right in front of his desk. And I hear this big burly man coming up the the hallway, comes in, and he's all, very happy with of all the testing. Sits down, he congratulates the 2 to the left, and then he looks at me and he goes, "Son, how old are you?" And I said, and at the time, I just thought, I didn't care. I'm proud as a peacock. I'm a cop now. Just not going through my mindset. And I said, 17, chief. And I, look over the other 2, and they're giggling. And then he says, "Son, you have to be 20 to be an auxiliary." So he didn't, kind of bursted my bubble, but he coaxed me along, encouraged me to continue doing the avenue of becoming a police officer. So later, and a few years went by, and I did, and I got hired on to Peel Regional Police in Toronto, outside of Toronto, Canada. And coming home, sitting in my kitchen with my father, there was a lady screaming, "Accident, accident." So, first responders, as I went through the course of being first responder and CPR and all that, I run out the back door and I pull up myself on the fence, and there's a lady in a house coat, and she's screaming out the top of her lungs, "Accident, accident," pointing in a direction. So I managed to hop the fence and I run to the direction she's pointing. Now there's a row of townhouses, and I'm following the road, and as it curves out to the main road, I'm looking for, as she said, accident, car, smash, something, and there was nothing. And so now my mind's thinking, what am I looking at? And then I hear, "Over here," and I look at over to my left. There's a man holding a screen door, and he's waving me over. So I run over to him, and I take one step in through the threshold into the kitchen. There's a lady running around the table screaming, and there's another gentleman to the right holding a doorknob, and he waves me over. So as I make my way over to him, I'm looking for blood on the floor, because it's still that mindset of accident, somebody's hurt, respond. So as I get to that area, he opens the door, my eyes are focused on the floor, and he pushes me in, shuts the door. And it was a little, I think, 1.5-piece bathroom. Didn't have a tub, it was just a toilet and a sink. And then there was a gentleman in the bathroom, and he had passed. So, being of age as a child, hearing, seeing, knowing, that all went out the window. And the first thing to me was CPR, check for vitals. So I'm down checking for vitals, and I'm seeing he's gaunt. He's got purple lips, blue lips, kind of. I'm checking for vitals, so I go to do CPR. And I hear, "Let me go." And it never dawned on me. Okay, now Rob, you can hear. And I'm just looking around, and no, I go back, check vitals, go to do CPR, and it got louder. "Let me go." Then I realized, oh yeah, I understand what's going on now. So I make backwards to the door. I open the door, and now instead of having only 2 people in that kitchen area, it seemed like the whole neighborhood plus some were in that kitchen, and all eyeballs are on me, and you could hear a pin drop. And then my father finally made it in. He comes through the threshold, and he goes, "What's going on?" And I looked, and I shook my head like, no, I didn't say no words, and everybody screamed. So they knew what was going on in there. So long story short, I call up the precinct and I talk to the detectives at hand who hired me on, and I said, "I no longer want to be a police officer. I know the direction I'm supposed to be going. I know what I want to do." And they were very livid in explaining to me that you just don't quit, because we spent money on you. We spent time on you. We picked you personally from all those candidates. So they made a deal. I have to be in a movie with EMT, firefighters, police officers, doctors who quit under duress. And I have to have my part in this movie and explain the story I just explained. So I said, okay. So they sent down a captain, a sergeant, and a film crew, and they're in my home. And I know they're looking for tears. They're looking for someone who's very distraught. I just told them straight out, as I'm telling you. And as they got to the important questions of why I wanted to quit, and I explained to them, I could hear him talking to me. And I know my direction in life is a little bit different and obscure from what I'm wanting to be a police officer, but I will be in that journey. Their jaws hit the floor. And, you know, it was like they thought I was the next nutcase, and they wrapped it up. Of course, I wasn't going to be on a police force. And so that was it. So then that was just shortly before my first case in 1990.
Mm, wow. And so how did you open that door to
Transition
trust
to
it?
doing the investigations.
Right.
Yes. I'm in a parking lot and of a building complex. And my friend was the manager at the time of this property. I'm looking over Greg's shoulder, and there's a gentleman walking to the foyer, the main entrance of the building, and I seen a black shroud around him. Whenever I see black around people, I know there's something bad about that person. They've done something bad. Everybody has an aura, and this aura was very clouded in secrecy, very deep. So Greg notices I'm not paying attention to him, and he looks over his shoulder, looks back to me and says, "Oh, that's Jesse. Would you like to go meet him?" And so eventually we made it up to Jesse's apartment. So now we're in Jesse's apartment. Jesse's sitting next to me about 2 feet on a sofa. Greg's adjacent from me on the love seat. And Jesse's girlfriend, who was pregnant, was in the alcove area where the dining room leads into the kitchen. It was like a circle type thing. And so she's sitting over there, and my mentality and line of questioning was, again, police officer route, very strict, very, very direct. And I'm speaking like, where do you work? You know, and I've just met this guy, so you can imagine what's going through his mind, you know, and what'd you do this week, what have you? And he goes, you want to know? And he goes, stand up. Anybody use stand the F up? And I said, I stood up. And he goes, are you effing hot? And I didn't understand what he was talking about because I was still trying to figure out why I seen this black shroud around this guy who was a miniature sawed-off, 5'0" Eddie Van Halen lookalike. So he picks up my shirt, and then I knew what he was doing. He was feeling my waist, seeing if I had a wire, if I was hot. He pushes me down. He goes, you want to know how we did it? He says, we were ripping off a car stereo across the way in the townhouses. And poor Mark Campbell, who was the victim at the time, was going to high school, came from Quebec to Ontario, working a gas station in a cubicle just to make a little extra money to go to high school. His family just moved to my hometown. So he says, Thomas Cook and himself decided to go across the way to rip off the gas station. And then Thomas had a gun. And he said he pulled it out, and we were popping him. And as he was describing it like this, he had a big smile on his face, like he enjoyed the moment. And he goes, we were popping him like this, and he was hopping like a rabbit. Poor Mark was the recipient of multiple gunshots. Didn't survive. So as he's confessing this to me, and then he says, now get the F out of my apartment. I already looked over, and Greg's at the door. He's already made his way out. He was very scared of what was going on. So Greg makes it to the door. Now there's a little bit more stuff in between. I'm just trying to break to the chase for you on the story. Right. And then I make it to the door. He grabs my shoulder, pulls me back, and says, if I tell anybody, he's going to effing kill me. So out the door I go. We make it down to Greg's apartment, to his wife, and she's very upset that the fact that both of us were up there, and I brought up and got him to confess, and we told her the whole story. So I made it down to the police station. I'm talking to the detectives, and they said, Rob, you have to go back and wear a wire to make him say everything he just told you in that confession, because we're in court with him next week. And I did not know all this. This was all just thrown at me from spirit. So I told him, I said, I can't go back. He made me, for number one, threaten my life, number two, and he'll be on to me if I ever go back and start trying to hash this over again. So they ended up going to court, and one thing he did tell me before he pushed me out the door, he said, he's going to get off on a technicality, he's got an alibi. Sure enough, his family backed him up that he was in a different town. Friends said he was in a different town. I know the route where they ran. He explained to me how they shot him, took off, what street they went down, and possibly where they put the gun and what have you. So they went to court, and he did get off. He lives out west now in Canada. Thomas Cook ended up murdering again years later. He saran wrapped his girlfriend's head so she couldn't breathe and held her arms and watched her die in front of him. And then he walked to the police station, gave himself up, and he served 20, 25 years in prison. So that was 1990, and that's how it all started for me.
Wow.
Do you find that because of your gifts, for some reason, people want to tell you these things?
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Isn't it?
It is. It's amazing. Witnesses come out of the woodwork. They're not scared. They want to tell me stuff. They want to tell me where instruments that were used during a crime, you know, the person who was involved. We have a case in Kentucky at the moment where I said the boy's truck and the boy will be in the truck and they're digging the pond and you'll find them there. The lady texted me back, about 6 months ago and said, you were right. He was in the pond. They dug the pond up and the truck and him were under the pond, and that family got arrested. There's 2 more boys missing, and it's all tied together. There's a gentleman in that area who won't speak to anybody else but wants to speak to me and give me, they videoed all these murders, which would put them all behind bars. So we're trying to arrange the fact that I can get down and he'll speak to me. He's terrified about everything because everybody knows everything. It's a small little town, and everybody was pretty much involved in being there at a party and in the trailer, and this all happened. Yeah, it's amazing how people come out of the woodwork and want to, tell you things and confess to you. Another case in Kentucky, went down there with Detective DeLay. He put me on his radio show and he quizzed me. He goes, come on my radio show. I do racing cars, and I'm not into racing cars or anything like that. So it's okay. And I don't know why, Andy, you're pulling me on your racing. I don't, but I go on. So I go on, and all of a sudden he went from one topic and blurted right into it. There's a murder that happened in London, Kentucky, and we need you to help us out here. And he was give me little bits. So I started saying there's 3 people involved. And at the time he had the family tuning in, listening. So, and the sheriff and everybody listening at the time, so that they would say that I was genuine and there was nothing given to me and they could hear all the information coming over. He had to stop me from giving information on the show so that it wouldn't be, tainted and for everybody else to hear. So next thing I know, I'm on a plane. They're flying me down to London, Kentucky. We get down there. Got to question suspects. One guy gets on the phone, and all he wanted me to do is come up his driveway so he could shoot me. He called me Mr. FBI guy. That was his tagline for me. We got a witness who came forward. The sheriff wouldn't take the witness, didn't think she was credible because she was handicapped. You know what I mean? She's very, very smart and intellectual. She conversed properly. She knew what was going on because he conveyed the message to her. So we got her. We got to meet the weakest link. They said, Rob, how can we do this? I said, give me Bristol board, and I'm going to profile the weakest link, the 3rd guy in the group, before, during, and after this crime. And I'll put his characteristics, everything about him down. So they did. And we're in the drawing board, and I'm doing all this stuff in the boardroom, getting it all ready, done up. So then he agrees. And to meet us at the end of his driveway. So we're thinking, okay, but he only meet Andy and me. No other cars coming, no other vehicles should be following us, just me and him in our SUV. Great. So we pull up, there he is. And we know that they got their scopes out, they're looking at us, and of course, you could just sense it, right? And so Andy's being bad cop, I'm being good cop. I got the recorder in my hand under his chin. Andy's hitting him very hard, and he's not budging at all. Then Andy out of the blue, and I wasn't supposed to say a word. I'm just to be the good guy on quiet side to talk and hold the microphone for him. Andy goes, okay, you got questions? Ask him. And that put me on the spot, but it turned that little investigation with him, interview, around, because I said to him, I know you didn't do it, but I know you were there. You didn't stop it from happening, makes you part of this. And the kid's looking at it, and then Andy goes, just a minute. And he goes and opens the back of the SUV, grabs the Bristol board, puts it on the back, and he goes, read that. And that's what he thinks about you. The kid started reading it, and he was just reading it and couldn't stop his eyes, and he turned white. And he's just nodding his head like this. And I got the microphone. I'm waiting for him to say yes or talk or something. And I said, again, I know you were there, and I know you didn't do it, but you didn't stop what happened. And he goes, I'll tell you everything. I just don't want to go to jail for the rest of my life. And it all came out on tape. We got him. Great. We take the tape, show the family. Everything is fantastic. They heard it themselves. Big family. And they were just, you know, finally relief, right? We uncovered this and got it done. Corrupt sheriff, right? Right. We're talking, there's corrupt police officers everywhere, right? It's just not that guy. It just happened to be we had one. So we go and see the lieutenant, and he's mocking me. He goes, "You wanna?" He goes, "I got a stack of cases like this." And he looks over his partner. He goes, "Give him yours. He can solve all these all day long for us." He's making fun of me, right? So he takes the tape in, calls Bobby in. We're waiting in the front. He was in there 45 minutes. Comes back out. He goes, "Sorry guys, there's nothing on this tape." He erased it, right? So now we're sitting here, we're going, oh my gosh, what do we do? We knew we had these guys. We should have made a copy. You know, we weren't thinking, yada, yada. We're just excited that we got this all done. We thought these guys were good guys. So they decided to call Bobby again and another one, the other suspect in, videotape it, and the bad detective along with the sheriff asking questions, but they didn't realize that there was a good guy on the inside who was filming too, and he's a good cop, and he was there. And so as they're filming and he's shutting off the camera, he's still filming and he's catching them. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, right? So get you off the chart. You know where this is going, right? And so it just, the family got a hold of that video from the good cop on the inside. They have this material. And I found the knife where went on property, and they couldn't find the evidence they needed to tie it to these guys. And I said, well, I see the throwing of the knife like this, put somewhere. So they went where I pointed was into the shed. They went in the shed behind a table, and there it was with blood on it. So they got that, they got the video, and now they are in the midst, and we were on NBC, we were on CBS with this, the papers printed it out, corruption, everything, what have you. And it's still sitting in limbo at the moment. I wrote the story about it in my book. I'm gonna grab it so everybody can get a good look at that. Psychic Profiler, the real deal, true crime cases, right? So it's in here, full detail. And the picture of the gentleman, when you put faces to murders, it hits you here because now you know it's real. And you see us in field doing an investigation and different photos, the report from Andy, everything's in there. It's all center focused on who did it and what have you. Now, suspect A decided to give a deathbed confession, and he went to the doctor, got pills, deathbed confession, and killed himself. He took a bunch of pills. So, I mean, it's all there. And suspect number 3 died. It's like karma is hitting these people. This was about, oh my goodness, I'm just trying to remember now. My mind's opening up here. About 4 months, maybe 5 months ago, I got told by one of the family members. And then there's the other suspect is going down a bad path, been in jail and what have you. Not doing too well himself. So we want to get him. One guy remaining, put him away, right? That's Bobby. So, you know, it's very intricate case. It takes where, oh my gosh, the sheriff and everybody's corrupt, and you know, police don't want to go after police very much, and what have you, especially a small town. And that's where we are. So you guys are getting a nutshell of what I'm talking about. I want to give up a lot of it, but
Right.
you can read the whole story in the book. There's like, oh my goodness, I took from hundreds of cases I've done. I put 12 top cases in this book, maybe more that are in it. from Canada to the United States, and you can read them all. They're all high profile cases. So yeah,
Now, where
there's
can
that
people
case.
get the book?
You can get the book on Amazon, any Amazon worldwide. Some bookstores can order it for you. Any online bookstore can grab it for you as well. And it's just Psychic Profiler, the real deal. True Crime Cases, Volume 1.
Okay. I'll also put the link for our viewers in the description so they could see it, and in the chat room also. So,
Okay.
Okay, so you got that case, and now how did you branch out?
Oh my goodness. It came on quick. Oh, I'm trying to look back. There's so many. Award-winning screenwriter Gloria Shepard gave me a call. She was in the midst of reopening the case with law enforcement of Brian Jones, the founder of the Rolling Stones.
Hmm.
So they needed me to find material. They needed me to find, because we all know that Brian was kept in his home, and the Stones wanted to buy the Rolling Stones away from Brian. Brian wanted to do a venue going different type of music, where they wanted to go rock and roll and what have you. He was confined to his home. There was things I came up with where he was in a car. They took him for a chat. We'll call it a chat. And they ended up stabbing him in the leg, and nobody knew that, right? And there was records that validated that in the car. And he stayed at a hotel to heal. They put him up there to heal. And then he ended up in his home, and they found personal items of him right in Toronto, Canada. Right in Toronto, Canada, we found stuff that belonged to Brian Jones. This was more, there's a lot of Rolling Stone fans out there that know a gist of how the Stones are. And she used to tell me, you see how they open their concerts up with Ode to the Devil? And I said, yeah, I've noticed that. They play that song most of the time when they open their concert up. They said they made a pact with the devil. And Keith Richards was really good friends with Jones. Mick bought license plates for Jones's vehicle with 666 on them. And it's just like, there's just all these innuendos and what have you. And they all shared a girlfriend for the longest time. She was into the black magic, the cult of it and what have you. So I ended up writing the foreword to her award-winning book. Went bestsellers for the longest time. It's called Brian Jones, Founder of the Rolling Stones, Murder. You can find that on Amazon as well. And I did it in cloak and dagger. I did it where I wrote it in third person and in the innuendos, and giving you the nuance of the climate of what happened back then. So when you read it, you're going to get, wow, I can really delve into this because it's a storyline. It's telling, what truly happened. And I was honored to do that. So from that, the Natalie Holloway case in 2005, yeah, there's an interesting case too. And I'm trying to go back even further, but there's an interesting case. So we're called to go to Aruba. It was the CEO of BBC Radio, award-winning film producer Ronald Busby, Christopher O'Brien, who's on Ancient Aliens now. Before, he was all behind the camera filming me for years, and a bunch of team we assembled. People who stayed in Chicago, people who were in like Florida, but we all got on the phone and we were trying to converse to make this all happen, to do it properly. Everything was set up to go. The authorities get a hold of us and say, don't come over, because everybody and their grandmother's over here combing the island, and our economy isn't what it seems to be, because it's just all about Natalie, and it's just a free-for-all here. So we decided, okay, fine. All my drawings and everything. Okay, let me back up first. I don't want to spoil this for you. So Ron says, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, let's go shoot the movie I wanted to do, Ghosts and Legends, which turned out to be Dead Whisper. So we flew off to Chicago, and we filmed it there, and in Indiana as well, for a week of filming. And so we took the crew and all went down there. Now, As I'm in my hotel room, Ron busts in my door and goes, "You sold us out. You sold us out." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Look at Fox." And he turns on Fox News, and there's my drawings of the shoes on the beach, right? Remember they said they found shoes on the beach, the boat, the color, the area which I said that they would drive and come off to the beach where the boats would be and take her. And it's all there. And I said that Vandersloot's father was involved with this. Turned out he helped him out as well. All this came out afterwards. So, I said, "Ron, that wasn't me." And we had a leak in our group of, I don't know, I think it was 20 people, law enforcement and everybody. So somebody leaked it out for money, right? Somebody wanted to be paid off and wanted money for this for Fox News or whatever. So yeah, that's what happened. So we did the movie. Now, fast forward to 2010, 2 weeks before Vandersloot murdered again. I'm on live TV in Toronto, Canada, called Daytime Live. And the host of the show decided to bring up Natalie Holloway. And we did. We went through the whole motions of the case there again. And then as I'm talking to them, I blurted right out, I said, "But they should find him soon because he's going to murder again really soon. And it's going to be another woman, like really, really soon." And this is on live TV, right? So they have that as documented proof. May 30, 2010, he ended up murdering Flores in Peru. He murdered Natalie May 30, 2005. Isn't it funny? May 30, right? And then the worst of it was after he did that, just recently, that past May 30th, he was in Peru, which I hope that they would have done him in, but they beat him really bad in Peruvian jail May 30th. So everybody was hoping that, that connection of 30 would have happened. He would have been dead. I don't wish that on anybody, but bad people I do. Yeah, so there's another fantastic case to look at.
Now, do the police department call you, or you come up with something like spirit tells you and you introduce yourself to them?
No, they contact me.
Okay.
A lot of the detectives I work with call me the Rolodex. The real deal, the real deal is not. That's a coined phrase from one of the detectives. Rolodex is coined again from another one. Like Andy, I've done 3 cases with him. The cast and crew of my show,
Mhm.
Chief of Police Martha Decker. I've done many cases with her. We're currently on a case, high profile. I'm not going to say anything right now because I know the person watches my shows,
Right.
right? So, and I'm not saying a word about anything about that, but she's on that with me. We did other cases. We had a bunch of them lined up all through Texas and what have you. Cliff Christ, Sergeant Cliff Christ. His whole family are law enforcement from New York to he's in Colorado. So he'd be from Colorado. Martha would have been from Texas. Andy's from Florida. Lieutenant Thompson is from Alabama. He's a negotiator in the prison system. So that's my cast. And then I had psychologists. I had judges lined up. It was branched off better than, like, say, another crime show you see of a psychic on TV. I don't want to name their shows and put them down, but you know what I mean. But we had many multitude of different professionals involved in this, ready to go. Hypnotists, we had doctors, we had it all. So yeah, when you say, "Do they call me?" They call me. It's either they say to the family, "Can you get a hold of them and then put them in touch with us," or they actually call me. A chief of police from Connecticut called me. It was a high-profile case of a Air Force sergeant, lady. She was murdered, and he sent me photos. So we did a back and forth thing for a few days, and so I wrote my notes down and what have you. And again, they give you zero information because they want to see if you're genuine. And I started explaining him it's a stage crime scene. It was a jilted lover. There's a piece of her missing, and he goes, "Nobody knew that." And didn't know that she had a jilted lover. They know who it is they're looking at, whatever. So we had to narrow everything down now to get the substance of the matter. So I gave him as much as I could. I said it all took place in a building that belonged on his property because he worked on her farm, and this all went on. I even got in touch with the son. And this happened in 1974, so this is an older case, but still high profile. And I said, I need you to find out about the necklace. He goes, wait, I got my mom's jewelry box. And he goes and grabs it. And he's going rifling through this jewelry box at everything she had. And he's holding a picture with her on it. I mean, with it on her. And he goes, I can't find it. I said, that's right, because he kept that as a memento. And that was parts of the case that were leading into there. And that was very recent.
Okay. Okay.
So let me go back to how all of this brought you in. How did you figure this out, that you had this gift, and why you?
When I was a child, age 2, I used to say to my mother on various different levels, you know, when she was doing the laundry on the line, the old clothespins, and, you know, putting the laundry out, and I'd lay back and I'd go, when do you think the angels are coming back, Mom? And she would say, what do you mean, from heaven? And I said, no, the other angels, aliens. You have a 2-year-old speaking about alien entities. And I'm describing different worldly planets and different places and everything, and saying there's people like us there. And they were thinking about there's people like them here. And that's how I was speaking. I got kicked out of Bible school at age 2, 3. So I said to my mom, around 3 years old, I said, either I'm adopted or I know I have a sibling out there. And my mom would go, he's doing it again. And my dad would go, get in here, leave your mother alone. So now I'm going to take you fast forward to him around 15, 16 years of age. And I find her diary. And sure enough, I read a little bit of it. I didn't go snooping. It was in and she must have been writing it or rereading it one time, because it was in the pots and pans. And when I got home hungry, I'm going to grab a pot and go make soup, right? And I found this book. And I just started looking, and then I closed it right away, but I caught a couple lines. And it kind of started making me reflect back to when I was 2 and 3. So my mom passes in 1994. My family pulled me aside, her brother and her sister. I'm indigenous. So you can see where this is going now about the residential schools. So back in the 50s, they stole my mother, my uncle, my aunt, my other uncle, and put them in the worst residential school in Ontario. They had a mini electric chair. They tortured the kids there. The nuns were terrible. The priests were terrible. My uncle was raped. You know, we don't need to go through all that, but I mean, we all know the stories of what happened.
Right.
My mom was pregnant at the time. A gentleman promised to marry her. He was a white man. Didn't follow through with it because I'm Métis, I'm mixed breed, I'm Huron, Algonquin, Wendake. So her being not of age, the church stepped in immediately. And I said to my mom, I found a photo, and I said, what are you doing in this school, Mom, with books in front of you, and that nun behind you is so mean? And my mom used to say to me she was a bad girl. And I couldn't put it together. Why would you be a bad girl, Mom? I mean, my mom was the most kindest person in the world, right? So again, they said, pull me aside and they go, Robbie, you were right all those years, all that time. It bothered your mother, but you were right. You have a sister out there. And then they explained to me what happened. My mom gave birth at St. Anne's in Ontario, the residential school. They took my sister from her womb, didn't give my mother a chance to even look at her, and adopted her out to a white family. In Canada, same as in America, because you had residential schools there as well. In Canada, the term to kill the Indian in the child, meaning to raise them white so that there be no more heritage of indigenous people. And it still goes on today here in Canada, big time. So my sister got adopted out. My mom never got to meet her, and she passed away. And I know that ate her. That ate her heart. I I got to meet my sister.
Mm.
She was the spitting image of my mother, identical. She lives out west, and met her family. It was amazing. It's one of those things. It's like two ships in the night passing. She knows I'm here, and I know she's there, and what have you. I know she struggles with this because she thinks my mother gave her away. She never gave her away. She was stolen away. Um, yeah, so that's where it goes back to age 2. And as messy as this story sounds, that's what happened as a child. I was so developed in knowing and seeing these things and coming forward. Age 13, my father decided to buy a house by a Catholic high school that I was told to go to, and it was called St. Patrick's, again run by priests, nuns, and brothers. And so we renovated the home, um, did all the work, and it was a one hot August night. And I remember we're finally done, and I go to turn the light off. The curtains are open, the moon is shining, it's beautiful, the windows are open. I turn the light, go to lay down, and there he was standing there, right? And I'm going, oh my gosh. And we all heard of um, dark people, right? Shadow people. So there he was, standing right there, and it was almost like paralysis. I couldn't move. All I could do was scream. And my mother come back in, flipped on the light, and he was gone. And I started to explain to her about this gentleman standing there with his hat, overalls. I seen his hands. He moved in towards me, and she goes, because her being so spiritual and indigenous, she said, maybe he's trying to convey a message to you. Let him come. She tried to teach me a little bit more at that age, right? Around 13, because you're coming into your adolescent years. You don't want your peers to crush you. You don't want people to think that you're a freak. So, and I wrote all about this too in my very first book that came out in 2003 about my peer section. But, and I referenced this story. There he was, and he came back again a couple times, and he explained to me the 3 gentlemen adjacent from our home across the street were all about to die. Mr. Leach, Mr. Waters, and Mr. Harding. Now, Mr. Leach was a stout man, very, very funny Scottish fella, very, very, happy. And I remember it was so fast. He went from being such a stout man to being such a very thin guy. And I remember him holding his pants, right? Walking across the street, sitting down, talking to my father, saying he ain't got much time left. And I'm just looking at this man. And I know what I was told about what was going to, I kept my mouth shut. Sure enough, Mr. Leach passed away. Mr. Harding had a heart attack and died just right after that. Mr. Whiting died in a hunting accident. So it was all 3 of them adjacent from him, and they were all best friends to the fella who was trying to talk to me in the house. So, growing up it was school. It was school for me all the way since age 2, as far back as I can reflect, all the way through my life. It was a lesson to be learned, still is.
So your mother was spiritual, and I presume she was generational. She was
Yes,
aware that.
yeah. I remember sitting down with my when we go over to grandma's house, and I remember grandma, they play a card game called Cats, and it was almost like euchre. So there'd be my father, my mother, my grandfather, and the whole family, and uncles and aunts and whatever. And I'd sit down, and I remember playing with these cards. And again, I'm only about 3 or 4 years old, and I remember putting the picture of the man to the man, and so they reflected back. They were actual oracle cards or spiritual cards, right? And so yeah, it goes back to that. And my great aunt Agnes, she spoke a lot of Iroquois and a lot of Huron to me. Called me Papoose, which means baby. And she would always teach me things too. It was amazing because she was very spiritual as well. When Champlain first came to Canada in 1603, very first white man to come to Canada or Turtle Island, he met my great-grandfather, who was Chief Roque Manitowich, and they became very, very good friends and started the fur trade. His right-hand man was La Tardif. La Tardif became good friends with my grandfather as well, and Uanu was his wife. They had a child, and they gave her the name Marie Olivier Silvestri. Now, these names I give you, you can Google them and look them up. They're very big in history. There's a big park in Quebec for my family with the big monuments and everything in Quebec. La Tardif said, I will raise your child as my own and give her to the Ursuline nuns to give her a better education, what have you. She met Martin Prevost from France, came over, he married her. That was the very first ever documented white individual and indigenous individual marriage by the government and church on Turtle Island. So that was the very first ever marriage, 1644. And they had children, which started the Métis Nation. Métis Nation. There's the on my hand.
Okay.
So long line, bloodline, and I'm the great grandson descendant of them. And coming along in that, they were very spiritual people. If you look back in history about the Hurons, the Iroquois, very, very spiritual people. Yeah, so it goes way back.
So tie this in for me with the extraterrestrials.
Yeah, that was something else at age 2. I vividly remember sitting in a circle up in a room in a church. It was like a little room, and it had like an one of those windows you can walk to, and it looks like you look out. It was really cool looking in there. The teacher had us there, and she's teaching the Bible, and I start talking about aliens and different planets, and I got kicked out of the. I remember my grandfather coming to pick me up. They gave me a balloon, and I wasn't allowed back. And he pulled my hand, and we left. And so, if you actually look in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, they talk about Nephilim. They talk about the giants, the aliens coming, and what have you. So, age 2, I'm not reading the Bible, and I just knew these things. They just were instilled within me, because I know no one ever taught me that.
So what have you done with that information?
Oh, I just kept with myself. I've seen things in the sky like everybody else. It's very vivid inside me. I know there was a producer director for 411 wanted to get a hold of me and say, can you do these cases for us and, do the show and, missing people and timelines and whatever. But at the time, again, here we are, I'm doing the crime show. I didn't want to get tied up in doing that because you can't do one without the other, getting permission from one director to the other. I was very fortunate that the directors gave me permission to do Halloween Obsessed, which I'm in right now, because it has nothing to do with actual doing murder cases, right? So or any case like that. But yeah, I'm just I haven't really followed up on that as much as I do the murder cases, because it took me down a path for years. 33 years is a big chunk of my life. And when you're doing murder case, missing persons case, and what have you, again, in the book too, there's cases where I brought people home alive. They're in the book. Reports from law enforcement, all there, and what have you. But it's almost like a daily occurrence. There was years it was like, one week I'm doing this, the next week I'm doing this, I'm flying out this way. I take my wife wherever I go. We went to Washington one year, got called by, I did a CIA agent's daughter went missing. So they had the FBI find the car washed in Virginia, means bleached, and it was cleaned. So they asked for my information again, see you genuine, I'm doing it, and I fax it down to them. Next thing you know, I get a phone call, you're on a plane to Ronald Reagan Airport, you're going to be here, blah, 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 blah. So we get down there, get through all the formalities, get into the sheriff's department, CIA part, whatever. And I'm working with the Detective Homer. And there's other people there, the CIA were there, my wife and me. And he hands me 2 photographs, suspect A, suspect B, and missing woman. And he puts them in front of me and he hands me a map of Maryland and Virginia. And he goes, find her. And that's how they do it. And there's no, we got this for you. Can you, read off of this? Can you, feel for this? No, that's it. So, okay, so they shuffle off to Buffalo back to my hotel with my wife. And I look at the map and I crack a beer and I take a drink because I'm a little upset because the plane flight was a little delay. And I'm upset at not the people in the room, but the two people I see who were involved in this. It just irks me, right? When you see people's faces who were so evil. So I circled a little road on the map, put it down. My wife goes, "You're not done, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm done." I said, "You should know this by now. I'm done." And so she goes, Homer ain't gonna like this. So we get into Homer's back to the station. Homer looks at it, didn't say a word, and he goes, "Get in the squad car." And you get in the squad car, and he's driving all over Maryland and then right into Virginia, all over. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? And he's trying to throw me off to see if I'm genuine. And I'm enjoying this ride. So halfway through this ride, I'm going, "This is real." I'm like this on the road. "This is really a nice country you got here." Now we go back to the railroad, and he pulls the car over. He gets out, he stands there like his cross like this, and he goes, "I don't know how the F you do it." And he goes, "I've been looking at that road you circled for 2 years." He says, "Nobody knew about that road." And he goes, "How did you know her phone pinged off Andrews Air Force Base tower and the tower on the next county over that led her right there?" And he goes, "Nobody knew that. And you're from Canton." He went on and on and on and on. Yeah, so after that, he goes, "I'm atheist." And he goes, "I don't believe in you." But he goes, you're making it so hard." And after the case was all done, he texted me, he goes, "I'll work with you anytime, anywhere, yada, yada." So here we are, we're down there, and I find the bag with the flip phone, flip-flops, woman flip-flops, her sweater, chain, weapon, many flip phones, not just one, many flip phones, tools that were missing from the truck. And unfortunately, again, here we go. People are going to probably shake your head and go, "It's crazy," but this happens more than enough. The detectives on the case prior to were wanting the mom, the CIA agent, to go on stand against suspect A. I'm trying to watch my wording. She wouldn't do it because her daughter was a heroin addict and hooker. So she didn't want to ruin her reputation because of daughter. As sad as that sounds, that's the truth. So now you got me mad, leaving my country to come there to help you, and you're pulling, I hear all this stuff. And so they washed their hands of the case, handed it over to Homer, who's about to retire, and he feels so sorry for her because he knows the family. He wanted to do this. So that's how I ended up on the case, went through it all, got all that. Now comes the time to do DNA testing, right? They don't got the money because they shut her off. This side shut her off. He ain't got the money. She won't put the money out. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here we are. We're stuck again because there's a lot of stuff that had to be looked at. So here they still got the evidence. It's in lockup and what have you. That guy, if they did it, they would have him, right? So here we're America. You're funny. You know, it's funny there, and I'm sure it's funny in Canada too. But I've never seen cases so delved in the wrong as I have in America than here. And this is what I mean in the wrong. It's not being done proper. So while we're down there, his radio goes up. We know he's here. Will he come up to Washington? And another big high-profile case of a biker in 1986. He shot, stabbed, and then had sex with his girlfriend, who he thought turned snitch, and put her in a red sleeping bag and buried her in the ground somewhere. So we're on scene. They've been digging since 1991. This is 2017. And we pull up, and $1 million homes. It's like the set of E.T. with diggers everywhere, cop cars. And remember, they've been there since 1991, digging all over this huge area. He owned the farm back then. I said to him, "Got aerial photos?" And John, the lead detective, said, "Yeah, go get him." The young guy takes off, comes back, package of photos. I swear there was dust on it. You can blow it and be dust coming off. They pull out one area photo, and it's a shot down. You see his trailer, her trailer, and a road in, and the same road coming back out, but all huge farmland that he owned. Now there's the homes right everywhere. So I take it and I turn it a little bit, maybe about 20 degrees, and I said, see the topography of the land? I said, there's the creek. And now it looks a little different, but that's it right there. That road comes in here, and the house is over here. And I said, that house, that's the last place you dug up. You found charred remains of bones, but they figured it would have been deer at the time. So they sent it off to get analyzed. And these cops are so beautiful people, and they were big. They're big cops too, and they're all distraught. Like they were just like sunk because that's it. The last place they dug, and that was it. They were done. John goes, you tell me one thing that that's on this case, and you can stay on my scene, or you can, Homer, you can take him out. And I looked at Homer and I go, didn't he just call me to come from Maryland to Washington? And yet now so he goes, just do it. I said, okay, fine. I said, I see her buried, but there's something on top of her, like a big tank. And everybody just stood up, right? And then John looked at me, he grabs my shoulders, and he looks at me and he goes, tell me. And I said, yeah, it's like a tank. It's buried on top of her. And he hugged me and he calls me brother. And he goes, show me. And he goes, nobody knew that. He says, we have the video, but nobody knew that. And this guy was getting out of prison very shortly, and they did a sweep of his jail. He had a list of names of people with check marks on that he was going to come out and bump off because he belonged to the big bike gang, right? So they wanted to keep him in, and we needed to do this. So I said, well, again, the picture, the land, a trailer over this way. And I said, let's go there. And the young guy already took off. He's running. John goes, follow me. So all the other cops come. We're going over there, and we're looking around. And I said, what happens to a tank after like 30, 40 years or whatever? He goes, it decays. And I said, yeah. And we're looking around, and I'm looking right in the straight center of this one place where it has a tree in the middle, and it has a 3-foot iron fence, 15 by 15 by 15 by 15, vegetation all in there, and an elderly lady looking out her window, shaking her head in the curtain. No, 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 right? And you see the topography of the land, it's like that, and then a tree in the center, and it caves in like this, and the tree's there. I said, well, where would her trailer be? And the young guy got the map out, and he goes, it'd be right here. And I said, where would her septic tank be? He goes, well, it would have been on this side. And he looks right where the tree was. And John goes, oh my gosh, and he hugs me again. And Homer goes, rip your patches off and give them to him. So he ripped the patches off his arms and handed them to my wife, and I got them still. And that's where they were getting the last warrant to go and dig, because the tree set it off. It was like down.
Wow.
Yeah, so crazy cases.
Well,
Crazy.
we're almost out of time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to touch on to wrap this up?
Yeah. Aside from all this, just, everybody we're in difficult times right now, be in America, Canada, around the world, and what have you. There's too much evil at play. We have to realize this. We can't just sit back and take sides and say, just because, and I know you explained it about a political venue and everything, I'm trying to stay away from that, but we can't just say we can't help our brothers and sisters because, well, if we didn't, then something worse would happen. And I think I'm alluding to the Ukraine, what have you. But we have problems in our own countries as well, and we need to help out and lend a hand to everybody. We really do. Are we our brother's keeper? Yeah, we are. 100% we are. We have to look out for one another. If we don't, then where would we be if we ever needed that hand extended to us? So yeah, love each other, love the day you live, and live it fully.
Well, thank you. God bless you, brother.
Thank you.
Stick on after we stop the recording for a couple of seconds so we can wrap up off camera. Thank you so much for what you do and for sharing so much with us.